So anyway, this is what we came out to see. There's this pile of cinder blocks marks the former site of Tony's Italian beef stand, which was a wonderful Italian beef stand. It was here for about 4 or 5 decades, and unfortunately, due to low patronage, they had to shut it down. I'm just kidding. This is an Encelia densifolia right here, which is a very rare and localized species of Encelia. You'll notice the leaves lack any sort of hair whatsoever. They're very glabrous, and apparently we just missed it flowering, as you can see. Again, that's Encelia densifolia growing on a extrusive igneous substrate. Very dry here. Not much going on floristically. The buckwheats are happy though. The Ariagonum. Only known from this location, actually, in the Santa Claras in BCS. Oh, there's a flower, a little bit of one. What's left of it. It's been a very windy, dry day. Anyway, there's one of the flowers. As you can see, it's somewhat a half. It's at half anthesis. Oh, look, there's some seed too. There's also a nice Dudleya here. Is that a Dudleya? I think so. Don't look like an Echeveria. Maybe it could be an Echeveria. I don't know. No, it's a Dudleya. It's a Dudleya. Look at those achenes. They got a ridge of hairs on the margins of the achenes right there. Now, of course, the important thing to ask is, oh, look at those phyllaries. Where the phyllaries at? Look at the phyllaries on this. The important thing to ask, of course, is why is this so localized? How recently did it speciate? Is it the result of hybrid origin? Does it hybridize? Oh, look, the leaves are somewhat dentate. Also notable for this genus. So is it of hybrid origin? When did it speciate? Why is it so localized? Why is it not more widespread? The mysteries of this genus. Encelia ravenii, of course, is another one. So sad what they did to the Italian beef stand. I gotta shut up, sorry. We'll check out up that ridge, see if there's perhaps more of them. Now, another thing to think about is why, I guess not only why is this here. It's easy to see how this was found, being that there's a road and a wash. So any botanist exploring this mountain range would easily have come across these plants, being that they're pretty much growing at ground level. The question though is, are there any more of them? And are there any more populations? And why here of all the places in this mountain range, which is all volcanic and all generally the same type of substrate and climate and general environment? Again, there's got to be less than, I don't know, 100 plants here maybe? Such mysteries. Oh, look at that, isn't that cute? It's a young Pachycormus discolor, the elephant tree, and an Anacardiaceae. Hard to believe that's a relative of poison oak and sumac. And I'm not seeing any more Encelias up here. They're mostly down at the wash level. Nice little pharaoh cactus with ripe fruits. Is it Dudleya again? No idea which of the 100 plus taxa that could be. Many of them yet undescribed. Porphyrum gracile, there's that. A lot of Ariagonum. Stenocereus gummosus. Got some nice ephedra right there. Oh look, it's at full anthesis, full frontal. Cover your eyes. There's got to be a couple more Encelia up here somewhere, huh? Maybe it's just too dry. Little man. And then, of course, here's a regular and very common Encelia farinosa, which, if you look at the leaves on this one, they're covered in basically both the adaxial and abaxial surface are covered in a thin layer of hair. They're much more blue. They're not glabrous. They're not just relying on a waxy epidermal leaf tissue to keep the moisture inside. They're relying on trichomes, little tiny hairs. And so this is the much more ecologically successful one, which is all throughout Arizona, on down into Sonora, basically all over the American Southwest. And supposedly this hybridizes with the densifolia, but the densifolia is much, obviously, well, it's not just rare, it's only known from the other side of this little ridge right there. So same question with Encelia ravenii. Did it recently speciate, or is it a relic of a much more widespread former distribution? And here you got another nice species of Encelia, Encelia stenophylla. Very narrow, much more lanceolate leaves, and a narrower achenes too. So you got three species all co-inhabiting the same little piece of rack. Okay, I thought I was done here, but apparently I'm not, because this is one of the rarest cactus, and you can see why. It's extremely hard to see when not in fruit. This is Peniocereus. Not sure if this is Greggii or one of the other peninsular endemics, but this is a jammer. This is a treasure. It's got a massive underground root system there, and then of course just this white stem. I've actually never seen this genus in habitat before. I've only seen cultivated specimens, and you can see why, because it's extremely hard to see. You know, but the only reason I've seen this is because it's got a little fruit that it appears some animal nibbled on, and it wants to get noticed. You know, it wants to get noticed and wants to get those seeds dispersed. What a treasure that is to see. Now, this is a phenomenon that you see a lot of cacti engaging in. It's a practice they use, as well as spines, to avoid herbivory and avoid being eaten. It's basically camouflage. Echinocereus poselgeri in Texas utilizes this. A lot of the Areocarpus do this. They just kind of avoid being gnawed on by being extremely hard to see when not in fruit or flower. Now, the flowers on this, of course, are rather large and white. And since they're white, it's obvious to tell that they're pollinated at night by bats and moths. What a wonderful little plant. And again, that tuber down there's probably got to be at least the size of my fist, if not bigger. Here we are, just a couple weeks short of full anthesis on this lovely agave species. It's something you'll notice on some of them, at least as I've seen down here on the Vizcaino Peninsula area, is that they get these kind of wavy margins. Very odd. It would certainly hurt to fall on. Look at the teeth on those. And of course all agaves are monocarpic, so this will die after it flowers. And I do not see any pups at the base, so it will not leave behind any children. Here we have a species of Ferocactus, perhaps Ferocactus peninsularis, with a nice little toupee of fruit up top. Now, of course, each one of these, each one of these is just ridden with seeds, those tiny black poppy seeds, which has got to provide a welcome treat to birds and perhaps rodents during the dry summer months. Help it disperse a little bit there. Of course, many of those seeds will not germinate, or they will germinate and not go very far, since it is such a parched environment. This is a Parkinsonia microphylla, another desert legume. A lot of desert legumes, you know, they got, ever since they got that whole nitrogen fixing thing with bacteria in their roots, they've really been able to colonize what is a pretty lousy area to colonize, at least if you're a plant. Fucuria diguidii, after diguit, another dead guy. What botanical treasures lay up there? Look, those seeds were covered in a rather mucilaginous substance, and they do not want to leave my finger. Volcanic plug domes, 101. Remnants of a cinder cone, or not so much a cinder cone, probably just a general volcano. You asked me the difference, I couldn't really tell you though. Look, it's what you would call a tank, or tinaja. It's basically a source of water left over from the rains, and it's an important source of water for many of the desert wildlife. However, it does not look appetizing to drink, and it's covered in bees. Oh, here's a nice one. This is Salvia cedrosensis. I'm surprised it's still flowering now, but it is in a wash. Look at those beautiful bilabia flowers. Oh my God. The foliage just covered in a thick coat of trichomes. What a beaut. One thing I do want to note before I go is, I don't know if these are phyllaries or they appear to be just phyllaries. Those little bracts. And of course the leaves are not hairy at all or glandular, but the bracts certainly are. The phyllaries certainly are. It's got a very strange involucre. Look how they're rounded at the tops, at the tips right there. And then of course they're just covered in those tiny hairs. Nice to see a flower at the full anthesis. The styles popping out, looking like little bug antennas, little Ys. Then the rest of those styles are just in the process of presenting pollen to pollinators after emerging from the fused anther column that so many synanthropologists over the years have fallen in love with. This species discovered in 1988. Not sure who discovered it, if it was Reed Moran. But you could see the only reason they did discover it is because it's growing right on the wash. And again, just in this little, I don't know, 100-yard area. Nowhere else. We went up that hill right there. We went around, went down that way a little bit. There's nothing. But there is Encelia farinosa over there, and then there's Encelia stenophylla back up over the ridge. Such a mystery, such an odd plant. There's also tons of little seedlings over there. Isn't that nice? That's inspirational. He's watering the... Oh, where were those seedlings at?
They're over here.
Oh, yeah. You can see, of course, the dentate margins and these little guys.